Hey there and welcome back to another video. Altissimo. It's something I get questions about all the time. They say, can you make a video on how to do it? What are the best fingerings? And I've kind of shied away from it. And I'll tell you the reasons when I actually get into the video here, but I am finally doing a video about Altissimo. In this video, I'm gonna show you my tips and tricks for the best way to actually practice Altissimo so you can get over that hurdle and actually get those high notes out. And I'm also gonna give you fingering charts for both alto and tenor. I don't play bari much or soprano much, so I'm not really too sure how those fingerings translate to those two instruments, but for the most of you that play saxophone, you're probably gonna play either alto and or tenor, so those fingering charts will work perfectly for you. Like always, I created a PDF worksheet that goes along with this specific video. The only thing you need to do to get it completely free is to click the link at the top of the description down below. I'll also put that same link in the pinned comment, or you can just go directly to davepollack.com/altissimo. Now it's time to learn how to play all those high notes. And now for what is probably the most requested extended technique on the saxophone, and that's right, you guessed it, altissimo. Altissimo is basically notes that are higher than the standard range on the saxophone. Standard range on the sax usually goes up to F, maybe F sharp if you have a high F sharp key. I have a Mark 6 from 1974. This does not have a high F sharp key, but do not fret. We can play all the notes above that if we have the technique to play altissimo. The way I teach is all about simplifying things, giving you a roadmap to really practice, really get better, and not waste time when you're playing. So I'm not gonna go through every maybe angle you can get for altissimo, but I'm gonna show you what I think is gonna be the most efficient way for you, and it was definitely the most efficient way for me. The first way to practice altissimo is to let yourself squeak. That's right. We're gonna squeak, okay? We're gonna squeak and it's gonna sound bad. But one of the things about playing altissimo you have to realize is these notes aren't actual real notes on the saxophone. Yes, they're part of maybe the overtone series and they're there, but when we squeak on the saxophone, just like when we try to play a low B flat and it comes out of that higher F, yes, that's a mistake, but that's an overtone. That's a technique that we can hone in on and control. Squeaks on the instrument are that as well. Everybody always asks, what's the best fingering for the altissimo notes? I'm gonna show you all the fingerings that I use on alto, and I'm actually gonna have that available to you, and I'll put the tenor fingerings that I use as well. I do slightly different fingerings for alto and tenor. It just seems to work better for me. But the thing to know about fingerings for altissimo, everybody wants to know, what's the fingering for high G? What's the fingering for high C? They're all just kind of a guide, depending on your embouchure, your air, the way you voice notes, your instrument, and the way you play. Like some of them are just be more in tune than others. They're really just a guide, okay? It's not like one fingering gets one note. You can almost play like chromatically and kind of bend all the pitches up with almost one fingering. Like I'm gonna let myself squeak, and I'll go back in a second, but I just want to show you that fingerings aren't really the thing. Right, I was just wiggling my fingers there, holding the octave key down and letting myself squeak, letting that note kind of jump the overtones there and just kind of, let it go. When you practice altissimo, everybody always starts from the bottom. They start with either F sharp or usually G is the note that we start with. I'm going to talk about G up to D here. I'm going to start the other way, okay? And here's where I think it's going to be more efficient for you. We're going to start on high D, the highest note that I'm going to teach you. Honestly, anything above that, especially on alto, is a little ridiculous. If you want to learn more about that, maybe I could do that at another time. I don't ever go above high D on alto, and I rarely even go up that high. Usually high C is or C sharp is my kind of ceiling for that. There's that Top Tones book by Sigurd Rascher, and that's a great book for working on overtones and working into the upper range. But that really goes, I think, makes it a little too complex and makes it really hard because you have to do all these other techniques first, or they say you do, in order to play altissimo, which you actually don't. Okay, you don't need to be able to play every single overtone perfectly and jump around and do all these really difficult things to play altissimo notes. Altissimo is really about your embouchure, setting it, letting yourself kind of voice up to that squeak, and then just using a couple fingerings that will get it in the ballpark. And then it's about your embouchure and, once again, the voicing of where your tongue position is, where everything is here, to kind of get it to the right pitch, which I'll show you how to do in a second. What I want you to think about is you want to push your tongue a little more forward and think a little more E sound when you go to the altissimo. I know I said always think ah, 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 but that's really for the regular range of the instrument. If you want to play those really high notes and you think ah, this might happen. If you've ever tried altissimo and heard that, that's because your embouchure is just too open, it's too loose. This is why altissimo is one of those things I always kind of dance around. I don't really teach all the time, and even when people want me to teach it, I don't, because it does require kind of a separate way of playing. If I kept my embouchure the same all the way up into altissimo, it's not really going to work out that well. It's going to be super flat, or the notes won't even come out at all. So it does require a slightly different embouchure approach. A little bit higher, tongue in the back, thinking a little more E sound, E, 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 E. Say when you think E, ah, E, ah, E, E, it pulls it up. But if you think E for regular notes, much better. But in the altissimo, it's almost reversed. You actually need to go E. So think E, push your tongue a little more forward, and we're going to let ourselves squeak. But here's what we're going to do first. I want you to actually do the fingering for high D. All these altissimo notes use the octave key, so I'm not going to mention the octave key anymore. But every note uses octave key. So we're going to use the fork on alto and then side B flat. For tenor, it's actually going to be a lot more complicated. It's going to be the octave key, of course, all three palm keys, the third finger B here, and then the high F key on the side. It's hard to start on that note on tenor like that, but it does become easier when you chromatically move your way down. So I'm just going to talk about the alto fingering for now because it's the instrument that I'm playing, so it'll make the most sense. So I'm going to allow myself to squeak. So I'm going to finger that note, fork, side B flat, and I'm just going to play with the normal all embouchure. Let's see what happens. So it's getting that sound. So what I'm going to do is push the tongue forward a little bit, think E, think tighter, and let it squeak. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. Okay, sounds ridiculous, but if you could do that, you could play altissimo. And you might be thinking, well, I've squeaked a lot. Yes, it's about controlling the squeak. Literally, altissimo on saxophone is a controlled squeak. Don't let these people tell you, oh man, it's got to be this. It's not a control. Yes, it is. It's a controlled squeak because a squeak is basically just a really high overtone. All right. Now, the problem is though, because it's so high up, the notes are very close together. The bending of the pitch happens a lot. That's all with my embouchure. Okay, so I want to jump into the PDF. One of the things that you need to do is pre-hear notes. This is where, if you went through the overtones, it'll really help you because what you're doing is you're learning where to slot each note, like embouchure-wise, like brass players have to do. When they jump way up high, they have to skip over a few partials to get the right note. Saxophone players, we could do that as well. The difference in altissimo, though, is we're using a different fingering, but we still need to pre-hear that note and think about where that note is. When you adjust your embouchure. So the fingering can only get you part way there. It's kind of like gets you close. Pre-hearing the note is going to help you out a lot. So if you look at the PDF, on the first line here, we're using that note high D. What I want you to do is play middle D, hear it, play high D, then pause, try to hear that octave up. Even if you can't hear it actually in the same range, like I know that's very high, to hear, but hear where that pitch is and really just think about this one note. Then allow yourself to squeak with that tongue pushed higher and more forward with the fingering. That'll get you closer and hear that pitch, and it should get you somewhere close. So this might happen the first time. Okay, what happened there? Well, I tried to hear the note, but when I got into the upper range and I used that high D fingering, it was moving all around. Like I said, the motion up top in the altissimo is very sensitive to any motion here. The normal issue is going to be you're going to be dropping flat or dropping out of the altissimo completely. You're going to get that because it requires extra pressure and extra embouchure, pushing higher with the tongue and all that. It's going to require that way more than anything in the normal range, which is why, once again, I don't love, if you're a beginner and you learn your first scale, like, I want to play altissimo now, like, that's great, but it teaches you some different habits. So only work on altissimo once you have your regular range tone in order. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm always searching to get a better tone even today. I'm always trying to get better and better. But make sure you don't just jump right into this before getting your regular tone together first. Do the same exercise again and really be nice and firm and consistent, and let's see if we can squeak out that high D. So play the middle D, play high, pre-hear, play. Ah, there we go. So what I had to do personally was I just had to tighten and stay tight throughout that note. Because as soon as I went ha, the note either goes flat or I lose it. So I stayed tight. So this process of middle, high, pre-hear, altissimo note is the same thing, and work your way down. Some notes are going to be easier than others. Just so you know, I found that B is, for me, the hardest note to get out. So just like any other exercise, you don't have to, just say you're starting on D and you get D, you get C sharp, you get C. If you get to B and you just can't do it, don't spend 400 hours on B. Skip it, see if you can do B flat. Because then if you know you can do B flat, A, G sharp, G, then only one note you really need to work on, it would just be B. If you went down to B and you stopped there forever, you're never going to know if you get to A or G or whatever. So, just understand that going in. Some notes might be harder, easier for you. The fingerings are just what I use and what I've kind of tried. There are different variations of them that you can find online from other people. I'm just going to give you what I use on alto, and then I'll also give you what I use on tenor. So here's the process. I'm going to go all the way down. So I'm going to start on D again, and I'm going to go all the way down to G. So there you go. That's the process that I would use for altissimo if I were you, because I know it's the most efficient way. It's going to be the easiest barrier of entry, starting with that high D, letting yourself just squeak. If at any point you start to get, it gets hard or you can't get certain notes out, go back to just letting yourself squeak. Just tighten up, let yourself squeak, because that's the starting point. Some people don't want to say that. That's it. As you get closer to G, you're going to hear the notes sound a little more like normal, part of the range. So that's where you really have to start saying, okay, I have to be really consistent with my embouchure, because I don't want to lose it, because I am getting close to the range. And especially if you want to play lines that go up into the altissimo, you do want to make it sound like part of the range, if that's what you're trying to go for, like the more Mark Turner approach, where it's just part of the saxophone. Or you can have more of that like Michael Brecker dirty altissimo, where you can kind of run up to it but make it growling on it as well. Just like I showed you with growling and adding scoops, you can add all those things now to altissimo, and that's where you can really combine all these extended techniques together and really get these like cool sounds. So if you want to add all of them together, you might get something like this. All right, I hope this video opened your eyes a bit about how to actually play altissimo, how to practice it, and I hope the fingering charts are helpful for you as well. Don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet as well. The only thing you need to do is go to davepollack.com/altissimo, or you can just click the link at the top of the description down below or in the pinned comment. Like always, if there are some other topics you want to see me cover and teach here on my YouTube channel, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.